Welcome to the CPO Rising podcast series brought to you by Products That Count, the world's largest nonprofit community, engaging over 500,000 product managers and chief product officers united by a mission to empower everyone to build products that truly count. In a world flooded with products, only a few ignite passion, deliver value at scale, and transform lives. Behind those exceptional products are visionary CPOs and high-performing product teams. We recognize these trailblazers through our coveted awards, accelerate careers from PM to the C-suite and beyond through daily best practices, and serve as the trusted advisor to nearly all Fortune 1000 CPOs. Our corporate alliance includes Walmart, Ford, Cisco, Johnson & Johnson, Amplitude, and more. The most admired product leaders across industries serve on our advisory council, guiding the future of product leadership. Together, we're shaping a future where every product counts. Learn more at productsthatcount.org. Produced in partnership with Capgemini and Mighty Capital, this series brings you exclusive conversations between member of our CPO Advisory Board, Denise Hemke, and the 2025 CPO Award winners. Get ready for raw insights, real strategies, and the secrets behind their success. Let's get into it.
Hi, Amira Youssef. So great to be with you today here with Products That Count.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited to meet you, Denise, also.
Yeah, so this is your CPO finalist interview, but I can't think of a better way to spend the next hour is to getting to know you a little bit and kind of understanding a little bit of your journey and how you manage product.
Yeah, I'm like honored to be nominated and got that far. So I'm excited to have the chat with you.
Great. Well, we'd love to maybe just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about your company and your journey to CPO.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I'm a product executive and public speaker, and I've been in tech for 20 years. And I'm gonna date myself that I started from the mobile days. My first client was Vodafone. And then I transitioned into the cloud and then AI across 3 different continents. So I started my journey working in Egypt, then London, then Seattle, and then now I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. And I worked across big tech from brands like Microsoft, BBC, Nokia in the good days and bad days. I've seen it. And then I shifted gears into the startup world, which I'm currently in, which is very exciting. I also like coaching women in products. I'm very passionate about giving back to the community, doing community meetups in New York, and talking about AI. So, really fascinating technology. In terms of the company, this is my second stint in startups. So this was legal tech, and it was really fascinating. Like I was more mind blown. I was not involved in the legal space before, but really kind of it's a SaaS platform that creates this marketplace for clients and lawyers. And really kind of from the lawyer side, it really kind of streamlines how he can or the company can do class actions at scale. Because in the
Mm.
old-fashioned way, I mean, it's an existing law firm, they're digitizing their product, like their law firm basically is the product. But in like normal terms, they have an ad, the client calls the lawyer, they manually enter the details. Please send me your documents via email. They track it via email, track it in Excel sheet. So you can imagine how old school it was, like very old school. Like, it was like, I was almost shocked when I was like, you do all this manually? I was like, there's technology that can have like set aside like applications. Like it was like, you kind of like, so it was fascinating is like how, we could streamline from a lawyer perspective, which brings down the cost for the end user, how you can do this. But on the other side, also from the client side, because it is a marketplace, is
Yeah.
like, well, actually, if you think about it, it's an opportunity for clients to make money because it was like, you have a platform that you can apply to multiple cases, streamlined in 5 minutes, and get, you're getting ultimately, in a way, if I would say free money, as in it's things that you didn't know of, and lawyers are trying to find you, but you can actually be proactive and apply for these cases where the lawyers kind of do this on your behalf.
Maybe tell us a little bit more about that client side. Like, what's it? Who is the average client coming in there, and like, what does that customer journey look like?
Yeah. So from the client side, and this is where I got very excited, is because it's actually could be anyone. It was anyone. It's
Sure.
like, it could be,
So it could
you're
be
a user
me.
of, yeah, like a Spotify. It was like,
Hmm.
hey, did you know that they kind of had this claim that they kind of like crossed the line, or there's a privacy claim, or Alexa, when you talk and she listens and she's not
Hmm.
supposed to listen, you didn't call her name. And that's actually a claim.
Yeah.
So it was, and she just answered.
He's listening to us now.
And it was actually like kind of, it was, like one of this is a funny story, but I've been only in the US for 10 years, so this is
Hmm.
very new. And when I first came, I bought an Audi, and I
Hmm.
kept on getting these letters of class action. And I was like, I have no idea what on earth. I'm not gonna call anyone. I didn't do anything wrong. I was like, I have no idea what this paper is. And it was like, hey, I left money on the table because I didn't understand. And through this process, it's educating the client side. It's like, hey, you have rights. You're leaving, because like some of these cases, the lawyers win, but they
Hmm.
can't find clients, and
Huh.
money's left on the table because like the lawyer can't take it. I have to find a plaintiff. So for me, it was like the economic, like, it's like you wouldn't know that you're impacted, but you are. And
Yeah.
it could be like from Nike shares to Spotify, like it's just everyday usage that, there was kind of a claim that you can. And for me, the benefit is also is like how easy it is for you to apply. Because in the
Yes.
old school, you have to call and like set where's the email of the lawyer, and this is all streamlined. You just apply in 5 minutes. You have a portal to update your documents. There isn't all this fiddling around. You can track how much you recovered. Where's your status. So it's kind of a low, like using my example, when I got exposed to this, it was like I could have figured out what is a class action, but it was like, oh my God, I still need to call this number, and I'm going to be on hold, the whole process.
Yeah.
So I think that was where I got excited about. It's like, okay, like for many people, like, that you can be impacted, it's much easier to get your claims. And also for the lawyer side, well, I can focus on the law stuff versus I'm trying to fiddle around, because part of it is a marketing thing. I have to
Yeah.
put an ad, find the clients, vet the clients. Then I have to do my law work, as in like create the demand letter and work with the judges and, kind of go through. So that frees up also like an amount of work for them where they're streamlining. So this is the application. So yeah, it's very kind of exciting platform, and we're kind of in the final part of doing V1. So it's like in a month we should be finalizing V1. So it's exciting. It's been a year, but it kind of seeing full circle now.
Yeah, what an exciting time. And as you're talking, it's making me think of like, applications where maybe you've left money with a company and you've closed that account. And so now, they've moved to a more digital experience where you can go and claim those dollars in a much easier way. Say, hey, I'm Denise. This was actually my Verizon account in Florida. And so I can recoup those dollars. And so it feels very parallel sort of to that
Yes.
kind of engagement model and sort of the change I'm sure that that industry went through.
Yeah. Um, And then answering your final question here, the journey to CPO, I started my career like 20 years ago in customer insights.
Mm,
And for me, this was like foundational, because I would say this is where I became very customer obsessed. And I think that was where I would say I'm the annoying product person. I was like, what did the customer say? So I would say that was my start. I then moved to product marketing, where I learned about go-to-market, and then I went into product management. And I think seeing this journey for me made me a very well-rounded like CPO to kind of understand like the perspective. So I would like for me, it's very valuable that I had this journey like up to coming to CPO. And I would say like the biggest turning point is like my journey is moving from big tech to startup. And that was
Mm,
where kind of the shift happened to that led me to the CPO. Like I saw how in large companies you do the whole scale and rigor and then I had to shift gears in a startup environment. I was like really how do you start a business?
yeah.
So it is about the product, the customer problem, but you have to build that muscle as a like how do you make this really economically work? Like it's forget the tech, the features, and so I feel I valued that kind of like that I went from big tech to startup because it made me think of a different lens. You don't have endless resources, so I was like, how can I be resourceful in that
Yeah.
perspective? So that was kind of my long journey of across the board.
No, I mean, it's a super interesting journey, both geographically and from a roles perspective, like all of the change that you've gone through.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, as you've gone through sort of these layers of leadership into a CPO, right? You talked about obviously one way to start up is you have to be very judicious, right? We have to spend wisely. Um, what are some of the other things that you think have really kind of morphed or changed? Like what's different about your role now than maybe some of the other leadership roles that haven't been quite as senior in the past?
Yeah, I think for me, like the kind of like the biggest myth, and that could be also kind of like, as you go up, it's not just about visionary,
Hmm.
that might be still true in big tech. It's like, it's a larger organization, so the CPO or, the leader there is more kind of from a visionary perspective. But what I appreciated about where I am today, it's like you have to think about both. And I really like this because it works both like visionary and execution. And it's really important because it was almost like, okay, like we do have to think about the strategy, but if you don't think it through to the execution level, it was like, I like the saying is execution eats strategy for breakfast. Uh, and
I
I
like
think
that.
that was one of the things like towards the end of like big tech, like in large organization, I was getting frustrated because it was like, it's a very complex organization. And it was like, okay, there's a disconnect here. Like, how can we bridge it? And by the time we bridge it, we're too slow to innovate because like competitor, the whole story. So I think for me, where I really appreciate it is like, no, you have still the vision, but you really have to be hands-on and kind of think through the execution. What does that mean? And by being small and nimble, it's really an advantage because you're in like with the team, you can innovate faster, you can iterate. Yeah. So I could see why startups innovate faster than big
Yeah.
companies because it's like, well, hold on, let's do the meeting before the meeting and the presentation and, like the whole, buy-in. And it's a bigger product. So there's a lot more dependencies for different, I'm talking about Microsoft, for example,
Of
when we're
course.
building Azure. Yeah, sure. We can't just make a change because there's lots of dependencies that something will break. So it's obviously necessary in that environment, but also it makes you slower in innovating. Where I appreciate now is like, especially in this AI era, I appreciate it. I think I would be frustrated in a large organization because there is a lot of experimentation. And in a
Yeah.
smaller organization, you can experiment faster and fail fast. So it's like, okay, this idea didn't work. Let's try a different angle and keep on continuing doing that change. So
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate to everything. It all resonates true with me. Where it's like dependency management is sort of like a four-letter word to many product people, especially in big companies. So if you
yeah.
think about, maybe right now, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that ponder, like, hey, do I want to be at a CPO, at a startup like what you're doing? If you think about that ratio of like, how much time were you spending on strategy versus execution before, and how much are you doing today? Like, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I would say previously, I would say like the strategy would be more like 80-20.
Hmm.
And I think I would say here, I wouldn't say it's 50-50. It would switch. Like, for example, like, when I started, I would say it was more strategy, like 80%. Now that
Yeah.
we're kind of like more in the final, like I would say more 80% execution and a
Yeah.
little bit kind of thinking a little bit about V2. Like, it was like, oh, like we want to implement this AI agent and, like, but it's like more kind of now is like, okay, we're on the final step, like milestone to launch. So I think it kind of like more is equal, but the pendulum shifts versus
Mhm.
earlier, it would be like more on the strategy side. So you're a bit like, I don't want to say removed from like the day to day, but I think in order to move faster, I think
Mhm.
you don't feel the energy. So I feel like, definitely I kind of believe right now is like, let's do it and try it is better. Like, I mean, there is some strategic thinking, so I'm not like eliminating, but like
Yeah.
gone are the days of these long strategy sessions. And it was like, hey, let's try an idea, even if it's like a pilot.
Yeah.
But let's not talk overly about it because especially in this AI world, like things move fast. So
Yeah, and unfortunately, that approach, right, that mindset is probably something a lot of big tech are trying to figure out how can we emulate
yes.
even in this big tech world.
Yes, yes. It's definitely a balance it was, and you kind of find these pockets. Like my last role at
Mhm.
Microsoft was like a small startup-y in the
Yeah.
Microsoft world. Like we were 200 people. So still like kind of in like, how do you ideate fast? So there are experiments, but obviously it's still you have to work within the constraints of a large
Yep.
organization. So
So that's one of the big things that you think that's really different about navigating the world from kind of big tech to startup. Are there other pieces of advice or guidance or things that you would kind of share with, folks who have are considering sort of that same navigation path
yeah.
or that you've learned on that journey?
Yeah, I would say like for me, I would definitely like recommend it. So I would say that I would say like I would recommend in generally doing the shift either or.
Mhm.
But personally, I'm biased because I did big tech, then a startup. Because I think for me, I had like the foundation. Like this is how,
Mhm.
because eventually startups, you want to scale. So for
Yeah.
me, I had that foundation of like, how do you scale? How do you see that like process? How is it done? So I personally, but again, I'm biased. I think there's benefit from going both ways. I think when you go to startups, I think like couple of things is like, I think you have to have this conviction. So you have to join a startup that you believe in the idea because it is going to be hard. You're trying to figure it's not just building a product, you're building a business, even in a
Yeah.
product function. So I think you have to kind of really be like, hey, I believe in this idea. So you're like really, you have to have that passion. You have to have this resourcefulness because it was like, hey, like you have to be creative, scrappy a little bit to do that. And I think the third is like appetite for risk because it can fail. It was like, I think that was kind of the first kind of startup like I joined. It was a social post. It's an AI and I was very nervous initially because I always worked for big brands. So in a way, the big brands always, I mean, I don't want to say always win. There's products that fail, but it carries that brand weight. So for
Yeah.
the first time, I was like, oh my God, I was very nervous. I was like, nobody knows this product. Like, what if it doesn't do well? I had that kind of like, it was uncomfortable. But now, like, I'm in the second stint, I was like, no, no, that's part of the excitement that you're kind of trying to figure out how to make this, and maybe it's the next big brand. So I think that kind of shift, at least for me, I kind of like initially it scared me. Like I
Yeah.
was very nervous. I was like, oh, but I like, what would I say is like a win case? And it was like part of the learning how do you set up that business from the ground up. But you have to have like a bit of thick skin. So
Yeah. I love that where it's like, I think we all have taken sort of our distribution channels, like, for granted. But the word I keep thinking about as you're describing this is gritty, right? Like, somebody
Yes.
who's really gritty, who's, like, got this amazing conviction, is willing to get their hands dirty and
Yeah.
just can persevere and is willing to take that
Yeah.
risk on.
Yeah. And on the flip side, I would just say it is very energizing because
Mhm.
I would say that, you don't need PowerPoints. If you have like I remember like, the first startup, I was like telling the CEO, was like, oh, we need to change the pricing strategy. And I had a document and he was like, sure, let's A/B test it. You don't want to see it? Like, he was like, no. I was like, so it was like on the other side, do want to encourage that. It's like really refreshing, and you innovate faster and kind of like
Mhm.
can try things versus you spend your time like influencing, which is a good skill to have. But I think
Yeah.
it was like the energy, I would say, was like, oh my God, I was like, I don't have back-to-back meetings just doing PowerPoint presentations to convince people. So there are
Liberating.
positives.
Right, liberating to not have to bring your six-pager.
Yes.
But I love the where how you kind of where you started with this, which is because you'd come from this big tech experience, you kind of you've got an end in mind, right? Like, you
Correct.
can sort of evolve into
Yeah.
what that startup hopefully will become.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, maybe digging into your current company a little bit more, um, how would you describe their culture? Would you say it's sales centered? Is it finance centered? Is it product centered? And then, how is sort of that orientation? How does that really drive the priorities that you make?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would say it's more product led.
Mhm.
And the reason it's kind of defined that way is more because we have the problem we're trying to solve in mind. Again,
Mhm.
it's a very unique kind of because it's like a traditional business. We're
Mhm.
digitizing, so it's almost a digital transformation story.
Yeah.
Um, and we're trying to solve like the problem, the pain points today, because currently the law firm is successful. Like they
Mhm.
win cases, they make money, but it's like, hey, you're leaving money on the table because I can only handle like 100 clients versus 10,000.
Right.
Um, so I think it's very product centric in the sense is like, how will we solve this pain? Like, how can we scale from a lawyer side is like to do like class actions at scale and faster. So this is kind of the driver, which eventually would lead into like higher revenues. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like, that would eventually, but at the core, it is like some of the decisions when we're trying to prioritize, like for example, in some cases, we're leveraging AI in the product because part of it it's like marketing, like it's a marketing legal case, like hey, I need to get clients, so I need to do the marketing. So we're leveraging, imagine lawyers trying to write marketing copy, not the best.
Yeah.
So so again, so we're leveraging AI to how to speed that for them. So again, so that's kind of like more of the driver is like more product is like how do you solve these problems using technology. So it's kind of really
Mhm.
embedding like every decision is like when to use like which technology, like do we automate this, obviously with the AI and law, like you have to kind of think like what is, you know within compliance, not kind of like, not personal information. So obviously the marketing piece is a safe thing that you can use AI to write the marketing content for the law firm. So definitely product led.
Yeah. And maybe pivoting then along that front, right? Like, as you said, kind of law is complex, it's highly regulated, and it's a slow moving industry pretty typically.
Yeah.
The fact that you're still competing with kind of human processes and, documents or paper, whatever form factor they're
Yeah.
using, it's still the equivalent of kind of paper.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you approach kind of driving meaningful innovation and riding this wave of AI technology, while you're still dealing with these, classically risk adverse set of users?
Yeah. And it's an interesting question because it was almost like, I mean, it's a bit ironic. It was as much as AI kind of like, like compliance, as you said, but it's actually what created the opportunity. So
Huh.
because it was one of the things is like lawyers basically their bread and butter is writing.
Hmm.
And that's their skill set. That's what they're
Yeah.
selling
Yeah.
ultimately. And AI kind of takes it away. So what happened is like it made lawyers as like, oh no, I need to get on board with this because it will
Interesting.
eat my business life. So it was almost because it's like there's a whole space into like legal tech. Like there's conferences about legal tech, which I was like, wow,
Hmm.
I did not know this is a big business. like, so I was like, but that was actually what triggered to push the needle, as in because part of like some, it depends on the law firm, but some businesses kind of like charge by the hour. So the
Hmm.
more writing I write, so it was like now AI takes it away. I mean, what am I going to charge? It was like
Yeah.
it can write the document. So kind of more they're shifting into kind of, for example, I'm going to charge by transaction. It's like it doesn't
Mm.
matter the amount of hours I put in, but if I win this case, I take this percentage, etc. So that kind of what started the process is like why the whole legal tech is like kind of trying to get ahead of it because they realize we'll be out of business.
Yeah.
On the other side, obviously, like we kind of the way we thought about it when we we're building that platform, what is the like low hanging fruit? And I gave kind of an example about the marketing piece. So this is kind of there's no confidential information. We can use AI to write this piece. Um, um, so that kind of is a low risk from that perspective, and in a safe environment. There are other kind of things that are legal, like documents, like the demand letter or compliant. Like obviously, this was not touched. That would be still done manually because we're not still confident. So we kind of prioritize which areas are we going to automate, where are we going to trigger. The one thing that we're still like focusing ahead is like using AI agents because as much as we
Hmm.
did this V1, again, think of an example of like I have this case, I got 10,000 clients. Okay, we automated the whole process. They put all the documents. Someone needs to manually review these 10,000 customers, whether you're legit, you have a claim or not, I'm going to approve you. This is a lot of hours still, like,
Yeah.
and this is where we're trying to see like how, this is in V2, we haven't started, but I'm starting to think about, okay, I think this is like still, it's not like there's no legal documents. It's kind of like doing a V1 filtering, which
Hmm.
clients are in, which clients are out. You always need a manual reviewer after it. But that's kind of one scenario where I feel it's low risk is like we can look at, like whether, because it's in the system, we're not we're not writing anything. It's just kind of like doing intelligent automation is like, approve, disapprove, etc. So we're still working with this scenario. So I think there's a lot more, but I think where we're kind of tackling first is like low risk elements to prove like the end-to-end flow, and then as like we're more confident in the technology, there's more secure, we can build our own AI like on top of LLM, so we have that security, but that's kind of like future down the line.
Yeah, I love that because I think you're getting more confident, but also your customers will certainly get more confident with the use of technology, just how rapidly this is,
Correct.
kind of expanding. And I think when you describe that scenario of, hey, we're sort of determining who's in and who's out, I think there's mental models too. It reminds me a lot of recruiting,
Yeah.
right? Hey, let me look in, at a candidate to a job and let me, score,
Yes.
how much is this a match? And so I think in those cases where there's also parallels in other industries that
Correct.
might have been longstanding, it kind of lowers the risk level.
Yes, yes, I agree. And you're quite right. It's almost like, like who's eligible? Like there is an
Right.
eligibility criteria, and you're kind of like, how do you determine? And like, should we put a scoring system versus like, and like the lawyers kind of take who are high? Because for them to apply for a class action, they don't need everybody. They
Yeah.
just need a percentage, and then others can trickle around. So maybe they tackle people with like an 80% above score. So like it's kind of, and then like, if there's a low time, okay, let me like review other customers, etc. So yeah, so definitely these are kind of like, because as much as like, I would say that which was interesting is like how much admin work there is. Like really, like I was like, wow, you must love your jobs because this is like not interesting. I was like,
Or you
it's
just
like,
get paid by the hour.
I know, I think that was like that. I was like, wow, this is a lot of admin work. It was like,
I tease, but I'm a daughter of a lawyer, so I feel like I can tease. But I think it sounds like, you're doing what everybody's trying to really do, which is how do I get rid of a bunch of the administrative stuff so
correct,
that I can actually open it up for the more interesting work?
correct, absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Um, well, we didn't talk much about your team yet.
Uh-huh.
So it'd be great to hear maybe a little bit about that. And how do you keep really your team informed of these customer needs? Because you're obviously closely connected with the user, trying to best understand what is the product you need to build.
Yeah, I think like for me, I really like to think about it from a 360 approach. And as I mentioned earlier, I started my career in customer insight, so I'm very passionate about it. So I kind of love to talk to customers on a regular basis, get like insights from them, like use customer support data, and also kind of look at the market, like what is happening in the market. So I think these are kind of the three pillars that I really
Mhm.
encourage my team to kind of always listen to. We also have once a month like a customer day. So it's like where we sit
Mm.
back and it's like, hey, like what do the customer needs? Like how can we improve? Like what is like kind of, because sometimes you're in the weeds and you're kind of like, which feature and which technology, which is important. I'm not like,
Yeah.
but it was like sometimes I like just to step back of like, why are we doing all this? Like, why does it matter? And so really that was one of my favorite days because it sometimes is like, okay, let's step back, like where, like even with the AI agents example I gave, initially you were like maybe 6 months ago we started talking about it, and then it was almost too overwhelming to think about it. And it was like, we're not ready because it's like we have so many other problems to fix first, like from
Yeah.
the end-to-end scenario. And now we're kind of like more ready as in, okay, this is great, but there's still a lot of admin work. Like we eliminated, let's say 50%, but it was
Yeah.
what about the other 50%? So I think it was kind of stepping back as like to like kind of like listen to whether the lawyers also kind of like from, because for me it was like in for this particular, the customer is both sides, the client
Yeah.
and the lawyer, because also like eventually this would be sold to multiple lawyers, because
Hmm.
also managing cases is overwhelming. So it's kind of okay, what are the needs and what are like the regulation, and there's so many scenarios of what if scenarios that you need to kind of implement in the process. So I like to see it from both sides, also kind of the step up of what we're trying to do. So
And when you're doing this customer day with your team, are you bringing in customers, or is it more, hey, let's just really like try to synthesize and take in what we've already heard through all these other channels, all these other maybe interviews that we've done?
yeah, and I think we tried the different mix and I don't know processes. Sometimes we got like
Mhm.
live customers in as like, hey, let's do a usability test or co-creation, like kind of like to see live, or sometimes just like let's synthesize or let's look at demo a competitor. So I like to mix it and match depending on what we're trying, like still grounding it in what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
Like for example, like in maybe in a 2 months, like I'd like to do the same one, but for AI agents. Like let's see
Yeah.
what are people doing, because it's a new space and like everybody. It's I don't want to say it's a hype. I think this is the year of like AI agents, but it was
Yeah.
like let's see who implemented it and like learn like what are the scenarios like that are useful. And so I tend to use those as in kind of like reset from the day to day and kind of step back, and it's almost like inspiration. Like I haven't done that, but some folks kind of encourage, like when I heard is like go to museum or like just step away just to get that
Yeah.
inspiration. So we have not been to that yet. So
You haven't done the museum,
Yeah.
but you're gonna find inspiration maybe through other technology and see what's
Yes,
sticky. Yeah, I
yes,
love
yes.
that. I think that's really smart because otherwise you can just get sort of bogged down in the day-to-day,
Yeah,
so I
and
think it's
especially
important.
at this stage, it was like earlier in the week, like where I had an AI innovation roundtable,
Mhm.
and it was like I'm pretty on top of AI, but like I got to learn new stuff from some people that are doing, it's like there's a lot of out there and ongoing, so you can be overwhelmed. So I think kind of that step back is like grounding, like what are we trying to do? What do we learn from others is important. So
Yeah, yeah. So that is a nice pivot maybe to think about AI and AI's impact on product management. So if
yeah.
you think about the product management as a practice here in 2025, how do you see kind of AI's impact shaping it?
Yeah. It's a great question. So I think like one thing that comes to mind when I was at Microsoft in 2021, 22,
Mhm.
around that time, Satya came up with the term doing more with less. I
Mhm.
was like, I mean, it still wasn't like with like OpenAI was not on the scene yet.
Yeah.
So I see it as a trend. The reason I bring this, it's a continuous trend because at that time it was more in the tech world is like, how do we consolidate? How do we do less? How do we be more efficient? Like, etc. So that kind of started like, so I would say more in 2025, there's more of that for sure,
Mhm.
especially with AI. Like it's almost just accelerated it as in, okay, now you have no excuse. So you need to do it kind of thing. Earlier it was like, well, what do you mean? You either cut the work or,
Mhm.
like kind of, but I think right now it was like, it's more kind of, that kind of is even more. And I think like where I would say I see it as like three layers. It was like more as like how can you leverage AI with people, processes, and the product.
Mm.
So when it comes to like the people, like how can you make people in your team more efficient? So for example, we talked about like customer needs. For sure, AI can analyze it in seconds. Like as I said, I started my career there. It takes a while, but AI can synthesize it. Obviously, you need to do your checks, but yes, they can do their job faster through some tools using AI. Processes like how do you automate alerts and etc. To make it faster from the product. Like how can you add like real value from that in terms of so with this three-layer lens, I feel like, yeah, product management does change. And anyone, like, I mean, I think there's a big other saying is product management is dead. And, I would argue, I don't think you always need people to manage a product. So
Mhm.
in essence, but I do think how we do it is going to be different. We can't be doing it like, and again, using just customer insights. Yeah, it changed over the years. So
Yes.
why would not product management change? So I think anyone that would say it would not change or, there will be unfortunately job losses because yes, you would need less people. So but I would say, like, for me, the way I like to look at it is like, well, reskill yourself to use AI because I do think like people who are not using it, that's where they will struggle. Because like right now, it's not what if or you can't like it's just like it's here. It is more efficient. Like let's, I believe like there was one conference I attended and someone was really like this 5 years ago anti-AI and it was like
Mhm.
it's bad and it was a data analytics like conference and the next speaker kind of made fun of that speaker. He was like, clearly he never did it himself because AI means that this is very boring and tedious for humans. So, so I think like answering your question, it is going to change, but I would say in more kind of, there will be more value add. Like it's almost like similar to the lawyer project because we will not be mundane with the repetitive tasks and so we'll be more creative. But I think the softer skills is where, like, for the younger generation particularly, that's where I would advise them, like, invest in them. Because, like, influence skills, like, become very important. Critical
Yeah.
thinking becomes very important. Or thinking outside the box about a problem, how to solve this becomes, like, very important. So I think these are the soft softer skills that we're more and more in hiring people will be looking at versus like the hard skills. Because even like coding, well, AI can code, so it will take the
Yeah.
jobs of a coder that doesn't code very fast. The
Yeah.
best coders are still gonna be there, but you need someone to check the codes. We're not at that stage to take, but so I think that would be my advice. It is gonna evolve, but I would like to think of more. I wouldn't say it's a naive. I do think there will be job reductions. And one thing I personally like to think about is like, how do you reskill people? Because it
Yeah.
happened in the industrial revolution. It was like when, the manufacturing become, people lost their jobs. So there will be, but it was like, well, why don't we be proactive and like, let's all be educated and kind of, because I do think it will create new opportunities, like for AI agents. Well, you need someone to manage them. So it was like, why don't you learn how you're going to manage AI agents and delegate the jobs you don't like to do? And I was
Yeah.
like, so I think I would like to but ultimately it does change and it will impact people, but also kind of it creates an opportunity where I think as humans, we're done for more creative work. And on an optimistic side, I'm a fan of the 4-day work week.
Mm.
And I would like to see it implemented in my lifetime. So I'm like, maybe AI agents would be the solution and we get the 4-day work week. So
Yeah. But
yeah.
what I think I hear you saying is almost like what you're seeing already. And maybe we're not there yet. I think we're not there yet, but we're seeing hints, right? Of as a product manager, we're going to have these agents almost for ourselves, right?
Yes.
To go write the 6-pager for us. And but I hear you saying, hey, go focus on the critical thinking. Like you can't just take the 6-pager and turn it in, or the
Yes.
3-pager and turn it in. Right? You need to have done the work and make sure that like, is it saying the right things?
Yes.
And so it's that, and maybe back to where you started your, your journey on your career is really spending time with the customer, building that customer empathy, deeply
Correct.
knowing their needs,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that even if the AI is going to do the lifting of the monotonous document writing,
Yeah.
you're conveying, what the wants
Yes,
are and
yeah.
what the
And
needs
you're
are.
absolutely right. It was almost like kind of even in the education sector now, they're kind of like, please say that you used AI. Just cite it. I'm fine.
Yeah,
Like they kind of in the like education sector, they're like, I'm fine that you cite it, but hey, know how to use it and like debate with it. Because that
yeah,
was like having that kind of articulation, not taking, and I digress a bit, but I like my favorite thing to do with Chat GPT is to debate. I'm like
yeah,
almost I play the devil's advocate. Well, what do you think if it's that? Or, and it kind of like you could see when it corrects itself. And it was so it's an interesting way to kind of also validate a theory from both sides. So
yeah. It's come a long way for where we started, which was like just synthesis. No, I think that that's, yeah, very thoughtful, and I think that's certainly where we're headed, and I also agree with you that it is going to create other jobs. It's just gonna
yes,
be different classes of jobs.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when you touched on the product, right, and AI in the product, so how, you're still early, and so I think you are always thinking about innovating. Maybe you have that luxury. Um, but you also talked about, sort of prioritization. And I think at the same time, as you're going to start taking on customers, you're going to maybe be dealing with the battle that we all deal with, but from your previous experience. You've got live customers using the product. You're also wanting to continue this innovation. You're already thinking about your V2. How do you, as a product leader, approach this balance between the day to day and making sure you carve out time for innovation?
Yeah, I think that's as you said, it's the ongoing challenge for any product leader. And I kind of like always like to ground it back to what problem are we trying to solve? Like, where are we in the journey? And it's a balancing act. Like I like to think there's 3 buckets is like the future, big bets, core foundation, like stability, like technical depth, and then kind of like growth and optimization, like what improvements can we do? And I
Yeah.
think just the buckets like kind of shift where we are. It was like kind of almost like, as you said, where we are, we were kind of definitely in like innovation, future bets. And like now, kind of like we're almost in the final mile. So we're actually thinking of like growth and optimization as like, hey, over the year we made a lot of like hypotheses. How do we optimize this? How do we so I always like to think about it as like what are we trying to achieve with balancing, but continuing the streams. Like I always like to have like someone dedicated, but it's
Mhm.
almost just the proportion shifts from one wave to another as a hey, before launch, it was like we're gonna like think of the growth and optimization as we're in production, kind of like thinking of really kind of this core foundation, like there's no technical debt, but also thinking. So I think it depends on the life stage, where your product is, but it's definitely a balancing act because I would say well, you have, and that's where kind of I was like one of the benefits of, working for a startup where you can think of strategy and execution. In this space, like, hey, like there could be another AI tool or model that kind of was like, well, okay, I need to think back to the like drawing board and you have to like move quick. So you can make this shift quickly. So I
Yeah.
think that's the benefit of really kind of working for startups versus large, because some of these shifts when it comes fast is like, okay, I cannot respond as fast as I would like to.
Yeah.
So I think that was where kind of I would say it's more of a balancing act to kind of see where are things. So
Got it. So just like changing the mix shift across those
correct.
3 buckets depending upon where you are in the journey.
Yeah.
And then, I think you're pointing out again that luxury of being in a startup. You don't have any customer bugs to deal with. So maybe you've internally found bugs, but you're able to be very responsive and pivot
Correct.
quickly.
Yes, yeah, it
Yeah.
was. So I think that was kind of like there's always, but it was like, and I would say that kind of mindset will shift once we're in production. Like
Yeah.
we'll have to be paying a lot of attention to these bugs and like especially in the beta testing like phase, is like that would be like almost like 90% of the focus is like, okay, we need to stabilize the system before we look into V2 and kind of add more to the complexity. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. And then maybe lastly, I mean, I've got some guesses, but I've got to ask, what new technology or innovation are you tracking? As I know we talked a lot about AI, but maybe you'll surprise me. Who knows?
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna disappoint you by saying it's AI agents because I think that was for us for the platform is the
Mhm.
next big bet because it
Yeah.
was like this was where kind of how much can we take it like into different elements, like even in the document writing.
Mhm.
So far we have not automated like the lawyer needs to upload like certain legal documents. But that's kind of for me the next big rock. And for me, I see like the low-hanging fruit is like the AI agents because I think we kind of stretched out anything we could do in automation
Mhm.
and streamlining and triggers and alerts and all that good stuff. But I feel like that is the next thing that would really kind of take off this platform is like, how would we leverage AI? Obviously, we still have to think of like the trust and compliance and security. So these are kind of core foundation, but I think that's the next big bet, which really kind of would take the platform to the next level. And it's not an easy task because it's still like early. Like it was
Yeah.
almost like the way I'm thinking about it, where I'm tracking is like, okay, you almost like have to have mini AI agents, as in,
Yeah.
okay, this is the AI agent, like the approval AI agent. This is like for writing this document versus like writing this document. So it's kind of almost like you have to think about it as like how, like, let's kind of more delve into the lawyer, like, team structure and let's replicate it and who's going to be the admin or like legal administrator versus doing so I think this kind of was like a big it's like tracking the technology but how can you like really implement it versus it like to make it useful because it's almost I'm kind of like drawing the analogy when people used to write like using chat gpt well you're going to get generic content and like people had to work through like the different scenarios how can you make personalization and make it in your voice and authentic and not making it generic. So I feel like now it was like I think nobody's debating the AI agent but I think it was more kind of okay like what's the job description, what are we actually going to train that agent to do. but it needs like some thoughtfulness because it was like in a legal context, it's high risk. So
Yeah.
we kind of have to minimize the risk of like what jobs are we going to delegate and how do we train that. So yeah, so I'm excited about that phase. It was like, because I think that would kind of like reduce a lot of like the admin work that we just talked about.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like, we're not ready. What I hear you saying is we're not ready yet, Denise, to have this agent be the lawyer, but maybe there's small jobs that we can have
Correct.
little agents go and do.
Yeah.
I'm curious, maybe on the flip side, as you think about the client side, are there areas where you're thinking about AI usage there too, or do you not see that yet?
No, we have like what we implemented on the client side, we did a chat bot. So it wasn't like, it's your regular chat bot, but we also kind of reduced it because it retrieves from the client information. And we wanted to we only trained it for selective scenarios because we did not want, like, I mean, some of it is financial, like how much
Yeah.
did you recover? So we kind of like freely trained that for only certain scenarios. And even if it retrieves from your account, to just say generic as in, yes, this case, you're in this status and, not sharing any confidential information. So we
Mhm.
trained it in a certain, but that was where kind of like also more helping the customer to get the information they need quickly, but also easing from the client side. The one kind of that for the future that we're going to think about is, but the AI agents as a priority is more kind of, it's almost kind of making if you would want to say it's a marketing making for the customer. It's like
Hmm.
matching you based on your profile. Hey, I do think you're eligible for this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. As in, it's like, hey, would you be interested to apply? And kind of helping you almost like apply for it because eventually we'll have a lot of, once this, have a lot of data, let's say you have 10 cases, we can promote like these cases for you that you're eligible, but also you don't need to input a lot of information because you might have, some of these cases actually, like let's say, again, I'm not picking on Spotify, but that's the example. um, it could be some of it has like multiple claims. So instead of
Yeah.
you applying multiple times, then, we could do that job for you to make your life easier. And we already have your documents, so you don't need to resubmit it. But that's kind of down the line is like, how much do we reduce the space that you're kind of also like spending time to apply for these cases, even though we reduced the process like to 5 minutes, but still is like, hey,
Yeah.
you don't really need, you'll just be alerted and, this is what you would need to do. So,
Yeah. And you get those 5 minutes back. Why not? I love that.
yes.
I think this has been a really great session just because I think number one, like it's been really eye-opening to talk to somebody about, really this digital transformation
Yeah.
of, a pretty legacy, again, still kind of paper-based very much industry.
Yes.
And I love that you're like, kind of stepping your way into it with a lot of AI, knowing that agents are on the horizon and thinking about how you're going to be using them on both sides of the marketplace. I think it's a great recipe for other product leaders to think about, hey, if that's not something, if I so far haven't thought, wow, I could do that in my business,
Yeah.
they can listen to this and say, wow, I think that I really can apply this to my business. And here's how I might go about it, kind of starting with the lowest risk first. And
Yes.
we'll see where the technology evolves in between now and the next use case.
Yes, yeah. And you're absolutely right. I love I'm personally fascinated with AI. Like I've been in tech for 20 years and I love about AI that it's democratized. I'm not an engineer by trade, but I have not found an easier technology to understand and piecemeal it. It's not a black box, like anyone can get started. And I like to break complex problem into small bits. So you're absolutely right. Like I'm passionate because it was like, people was like, where do I start? I was like, guys, like this is the easiest technology I've seen. It's not a black box. You can try like, you can just try it in your day to day and you'll be using AI. So I feel like, I love your summary because absolutely anyone can try it in small pieces. And I do think like people have to experiment. Some things will not work. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is rubbish. Like, sure. next. Like,
Yeah.
don't take it like it's kind of low fidelity, that you can try things and see what works for your product and your business. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this wisdom with us today. And I think maybe a lot more people will be trying AI after today's session. So, Amira, thank you.
thank you. I enjoyed our conversation, Denise.
This is SC Moadi again, founder and chair of Products That Count. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, be sure to leave us a review on your favorite platform, including Spotify and Apple. And please check out our other resources at productsthatcount.org. They're designed to accelerate your product career and make product the most important function in business. Until soon.